Well, I'm going to talk about fear, and I've been told that this carpet is a precarious place for high heels. So I'm going to take a minute and sort of, get settled in here. But you may be curious about these little white eggs that are in your bag. So I invite you to take them out. And open them up. And just play. For the next several minutes, just play. I know you want to. Just play and relax. Relax if you dare, because we are talking about fear. And I promise this is all going to make sense shortly. Economists and the media tell us we are on the precipice of the fiscal cliff. I posit that we are on the verge of something even more serious, called the emotional ledge. In the emotional ledge, we allow ourselves to believe everything we see, we think, we feel, and we hear. This impairs our ability to self-regulate and undermines our emotional and physical safety, well-being, and I dare say, happiness. Yes, it's true. The world is rife with challenges and despair. However, it's in our ability to be resilient, and you keep hearing the word resiliency and courage, in spite of everything, the never-ending barrage of doomsday reports and the abyss of the unknown. Our safest strategy for managing whatever comes next is to just stop. Just stop for a moment and be. Because when we get into fear, we never operate from the right place. Fear is defined as an emotional state triggered by something that has the power to harm us. Anxiety is a negative emotional feeling, two different things, in which a threat is perceived but not actually present. Happiness is a universal desire, but fear is an equal opportunity emotion, that which we all despise and we all know intimately. Admit it, we all fear fear and loathe suffering even more. Fear is one of the most all-consuming, dreaded emotions. And yet, fear is the base station from where many of us operate. Fear is the seemingly dark, scary, uncontrollable 300-pound gorilla that renders us powerless as it unexpectedly grabs us by our throat, causing our hearts to palpitate, our lungs to hyperventilate, our bodies to profusely perspirate, and worse yet, triggers our brains to ruminate to the point of mentally sparking out. Are you with me here? Do you recognize this scenario? We have all been there. Happily, I get to felicitate happiness as a profession. People often ask me where I get my energy, where I get my focus. I used to think that this was solely based on my nature, the knack for multitasking and operating with high-octane enthusiasm. As time passed, I began to observe that maybe that's not quite the case. And now I have a technical difficulty, so I'm going to switch to the paper version. So see, this is the fear. What do you do with the fear? You stop, you take a deep breath, you pull the silly putty, and you switch to your paper notes and the glasses. So bear with me for 1 second. All right. All right. The truth be told, I am an outlier of fear with more than 10,000 hours of practice, and I continue to enlist for multiple tours of duty. I discovered fear is not my enemy. It is my relationship to it that is my drill sergeant. Personally, I am challenged and motivated by fear. Fear is my go-go juice. Fear of dipping below the poverty line into modern, affluent homelessness. Fear of economic destruction. Fear of my life being out of control from the poor choices and actions of someone I once loved and trusted. This is part of my daily and frightening reality, and at the same time, it's what lights my fire and jumpstarts my engine. Welcome to my dark side with a silver lining. You see, this fear of mine is the fire in my belly. It has guided me to where I stand today. It comes from years of past stress and a formal personal orbit that was filled with all the makings of a reality TV show. But that is not me. In order to manage effectively, I chose to become an emotional explorer and to take fear head on, to make fear my friend, to dance with this scary beast and experiment like a lab rat while observing and recording data like a lay scientist. In evolutionary terms, the brain's ability to remember fear or trauma has been vital in our long-term survival. Yet, in the present modern world, when the fear response is triggered in our brains by a traumatic event such as combat, abuse, or a major accident, none of us wants to re-experience that vividly detailed event for the rest of our lives, right? No one wants to revisit this over and over and over again. But the brain and the body accumulates these traumas, large and small, and not recognizing that a threat is no longer present. The Western world is overstressed, overscheduled, and outrageously fearful of most of which will never happen. Yet our brains do not recognize the source of our fear once that alarm is tripped. Our human emotions are all warehoused in the same physically complex storage facility, our brains. And within our brains are compartments responsible for governing our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions. My work with veterans inspired my curiosity about what felt like an intense disconnect between life events and emotional responses. So it became really important for me to delve under the human hood to better understand the source that rules our emotional roost. What I mean is that events happen and time passes, and yet some moments continue to feel like they just happened yesterday. This can be extremely stressful, right? We all know it. But the good news, and there is good news in this is another part of the silver lining, is that it can be explained, and that this knowledge is the power in harnessing control over our feelings. So you see here, we're looking under the human hood, and I want to talk to you about what's under there. There are a couple of key components that help us deal or not with stress and anxiety. The prefrontal cortex is like the CEO of the brain. It's right up here. And it is our thought police. Interestingly, it is not fully developed until our mid-20s. To me, this is a little bit scary, actually, because many of our soldiers who go off to war are placed in extremely precarious situations with their brains not being fully developed. So the prefrontal cortex governs our emotions, decisions, executive functions, behaviors, self-mastery, or lack thereof. The amygdala is like the alarm center of the brain. It is part of our reptilian mind, meaning the oldest part of our evolutionary brain, and it responds quickly to threats in order to keep us safe and alive. Once a threat is perceived, it sends out warning messages and chemicals throughout the body signaling fight or flight responses. In other words, danger, danger, danger. And here is where I find the story really, really gets interesting and most challenging. This emotional meltdown that we experience when we are in stress overload makes us fearful, anxious, worried, and most importantly to me, keeps me from my happy place. This is what Daniel Goleman, a psychologist and specialist in emotional intelligence, refers to as an amygdala hijacking. The amygdala dominates the prefrontal cortex. Remember, this is the CEO of the brain, shutting it off from all reasoning and accountability. Consider this. In the midst of an amygdala hijacking, the perceived threat is just as real to our brains as a true 5-alarm emergency. The reptilian response has eclipsed our reason and actually places us at higher risk for things going wrong. Fear is most often entwined with anxiety over the anticipation of a loss of control, the unknown, or the worst thing imagined happening. Most of the time, this is thought-based and not a reality. We have become accustomed to living in this uber-stress state. The fear and stress are violators of our peace and dampen our intuition, that sixth sense, which is our civilized internal compass. And when we've been hijacked, we lose vital connection to our reasonableness in daily life. We work ourselves up into an emotional tizzy with irrational fears and beliefs that stem from rumination about the past or worrying about the future, somewhere over there. It's an illusory state of mind, and that's why it's called fear. However, if we train ourselves to be mindful and truly present, in this moment, fear has no place to land. Let's take a minute and have some fun with fear. Using myself as the guinea pig in my own living laboratory, I have identified 5 types of self-observed fear, and I have made them my rotating dance partners. Fear number 1, the real OMG fear. Lives are at risk and bad things are happening. Fear number 2, first world fear. People, sights, sounds, or symbols that we perceive as a potential threat rather than being truly harmful. Example, my day is ruined. I'm afraid I'm going to be late for my yoga class. Fear number 3, illusory fear. Angst about the what-ifs of yesterday, tomorrow, and the unknown. This is also known as Real Life 101. Fear number 4, this is a big one, the fear of failing, or aticophobia. That is the diagnostic code for it. This is the abnormal, unwarranted, and persistent fear of failing, so screw it, why try? This holds us back from life, from a life of meaning and self-actualization. And the final fear I've observed is the fear of pending delight. That's fear number 5. This is enthusiasm and positive anticipation of something fun, new, or adventurous, laced with a little scaredy-cat hesitation or uncertainty. Think thrill rides, holidays, career changes, romance, parenthood, and speaking at a TED event. So, fears numbered 2 through 5 is where most of us live and die. Now, that is a lot of fear keeping us from acting courageously and taking these necessary and healthy risks, which, by the way, are a requirement to live out loud. You got to take some risks in order to live out loud. The bottom line here is that stress overload and the unmanaged mind is the enemy, not fear itself. Overcoming fear depends on the will, motivation, and determination to take charge and change. We all possess fierce potential for fearlessness, and that resides in the mind, plain and simple. Through my combat trauma recovery work with veterans, I have come to more clearly understand fear and its raging power to consume and destroy, or inspirational ability to evolve and transcend the dark nights of the soul. Coming face to face with deep human suffering, injury, loss, and fear has inspired me to research, to seek more effective healing solutions, to repurpose my own fears in service to artfully helping our brave servicemen and women that I have the honor of working with to transform their post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth. Most of us in this room will never know true mortal fear. Most of us will never face off in battle with an identifiable enemy, the barrel of a shotgun, the blade of a knife, the implosion of a bomb, or the explosion of a suicide bomber. The good news is that fear can literally be shapeshifted, molded, and sculpted like the ball of silly putty in your hands. We can pull it, we can twist it, we can knead our fear like a tool. The first step is managing your mind. You free your mind, you free your world. There are some exciting discoveries in neuroscience that support the miraculous powers of our brains. One is epigenetics. Contrary to Newtonian belief in that the body is a biological machine, epigenetic science reveals that we are an extension of our environmental factors, that being that our thoughts, feelings, emotions, unconscious beliefs, toxic exposures, exposures to sunlight, exercise, and anything we choose to ingest matters. This shatters the concepts that we are victims of our genetics and that we indeed have tremendous power to shape and direct our physical and psychological well-being. The second are mere neurons. They are believed to be the evolutionary devices that help primates learn non-verbally, without having to describe how to do these things. In humans, this talent has evolved even further in concert with the development of speech, emotional, and social abilities, that which have been the primary target of neurological evolution. This allows us to feel greater empathy and resonate emotionally with others. Think about this for a second, and you will have this experience in a few minutes. The tribe with whom you jive is how you vibe. So hold that thought, and I think it will make sense. And last is neuroplasticity. Feeling that silly putty again between your fingers, the more you work it, you'll notice that it will get warmer and more pliable. We rewire our brains in much the same way. It's true. Research has proven that we can, in fact, teach old dogs new tricks. We do not have to be the victims of our programming. We can condition our minds to change the neural pathways through meditation and cognitive practice to alter our own brains, our behaviors, our personalities, and ultimately reality. How do we evolve from fearlessness? Lao Tzu wrote, "There are many paths to enlightenment. Be sure to take the one with heart." My personal journey and the techniques we teach vets through our nonprofit include making fear the ally. This is done by reclaiming our common sense, ladies and gentlemen, giving the gift of our attention to ourselves in order to thrive and flourish. This purpose-driven mission integrates the brain, the body, and the breath to nourish our brains through mindfulness and positive psychology, our bodies through movements such as yoga and good self-care, as well as our breath through meditation in order to gain equanimity and self-mastery. The more balanced we are, the less diseased, fearful, stressed, and depressed we become, enabling us to recalibrate and change to become peacefully at ease, present within our bodies and in the world. Consider this fearless version of the ancient Buddhist Eightfold Path to Enlightenment, which simply says that when we operate fully awake and in control of our attention, we inevitably end up more contented. We can go to the next slide. At the end of the day, demystifying my fear has allowed me to keep my friends close and my fear closer, rather than allowing fear to paralyze me. And I have been able to add it as a motivational dimension for my work and myself. Fear sparks my catalytic jet fuel, propelling me just a little closer to fierce fearlessness and unlimited possibilities. Facing the mysteries of fear is how I learn, love, and live out loud. Thank you.